This is Jacqueline Fish. Welcome to the 100th episode of How Women Write. I'm smiling ear to ear saying that because I didn't know how far I would make it podcasting. And I'm not quitting anytime soon. But today I want to do something special, a solo episode, and talk about the main things I've learned since episode one. 100 episodes is a big deal. I forget the stats on podcasting, but I believe most people stop at 5 or 20 or something like that. 100, triple digits. I'm so excited. And I remember seeing other people's podcasts in the 500s or thousands, and I always wondered, how did they do that? So I'm going to talk about some things I learned about writing, life, podcasting, content, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Number one thing I learned from guests. Writing while criticizing yourself doesn't get easier. What I have seen from guests is that they just get better at continuing anyway. This is important because some people think that they need to squash all self-doubt before beginning to write, but it's actually the other way around. You need to write and then self-doubt gets squashed. By doing that, you are showing up at the page, you see resistance, you feel it, and you keep going anyway. Number two, you do not need permission to call yourself a writer. This is a really common thing I saw with a lot of guests. They felt like they needed to have a certain number of articles, Substacks, or be a certain word count into their book drafts to call themselves a writer. You don't. If you've written one thing, you can call yourself a writer. Now, as an aside, I know many of you are author entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs first, author second, business owner, solopreneur, whatever you call yourself. Writer is often the second hat you wear, and it might not be a hat you wear often, but it might be one that you put on from time to time as you dive into writing a book or working on an essay or something like that. Lesson number three, the story you're avoiding is usually the one people need to hear. I've seen this time and time again, and especially with myself, telling my story of 3 layoffs, the dream that finally pushed me to finish my book, Unfussy Life. And there were many stories in there that I almost didn't tell. I held some back. I thought they weren't good enough, thought they weren't interesting enough. I thought some of them were frankly boring and no one would care. That is also something that I hear from many of the studio members and my one-on-one clients as well, and guests too, that they hesitated to tell some of the stories that they told in their blogs and in their books. The other thing I find is that when people are attempting to write for SEO, for instance, or I need to write this blog because it aligns more with my business, instead of telling the story that is pulling at them, saying the thing that is nudging them, you have to follow your energy. And that is true all the time, not just some of the time. When you feel enthusiastic, passionate, fired up, whatever that is about something, writing it, not the other thing, is what your readers feel. And I've also heard from some who have attempted to stick to a content plan following a 90-day cycle of articles rotating through their 4 pillars of content. Like, blah. No, thank you. And what they say is, I just want to write whatever I want to write. And I love that. And I think that is what you should write. And especially in an age where AI can write that content for you, the tips, the hacks, the advice, AI can do a perfectly fine job of that. What AI cannot do is tell your stories. It cannot translate the energy you're feeling about a subject into what you're talking about. More than ever, our stories are important. And I think that is only increasing, whether you're telling your story in books or blogs. You are the one to tell it. You are the best one to tell it. Lesson number four. Lesson number four is more of a how I found something, how I found my rhythm by adding a new content stream. I've been blogging for 14 years now, and starting a new content stream like a podcast can sometimes, to some people, feel like one more thing to do. Now, I know myself, I'm a Libra sun. I love one-on-one conversations, deep conversations. And so many of them have been with fellow intuitives. If we're talking Myers-Briggs, INFJ, people who call themselves sensitive, highly sensitive, they're my people. And sitting down and having a deep conversation with them lights me up. And many times, guests dive right in and go to the deep stuff. We gloss over the surface level and go there. This is a totally different format from the blogging I was doing. So, how I found my rhythm to not burn out and not have podcasting feel like one more thing to quote do was a couple things. Rotating interviews with solo episodes. And I've been really lucky in that a ton of really great guests have reached out to me. So I have guests lined up through the fall into November, which is amazing. And balancing that with some solo episodes, because I also get feedback that you want to hear from me. You want to hear what's new. And I do some of that on my Substack. However, I do like popping in with a solo episode. I've considered putting the two kinds of episodes together and having it all as one, like part update, part interview. I considered it for about 5 minutes and then instantly it was a no because I want to give my guest the full spotlight and the full honor of being the only thing we're talking about in that episode, not anything else. I also find that that makes it easier for podcast editing. I do light editing. I edit out long pauses, some of the ums and ahs here and there, just so that it's not distracting to a listener, so that you can listen, get the lesson, and move on and not have episodes be longer than they need to be. But I do keep a lot of those things that we naturally do with speech because it makes you you. The other thing I found really useful by adding this content stream of podcasting is repurposing a Substack or an old blog on the podcast. And I take a very intuitive approach to it. I will pull up an article that I wrote in the past that feels strong, like it's something I've sent someone this week, some like a pressing problem. I will pull up that article and I will speak to it. I'm not reading it. I'm seeing what's there and sharing what comes to mind. I do almost no planning for my episodes. Planning would be it's probably an ambitious word. It's more like I have an idea of what I'm going to talk about. I might jot down a few notes on a sticky note and then I hit record and I just go. And then I do some quick edits, get some show notes together and get it scheduled. I am not a perfectionist with it. I am not constantly tweaking. I just want it out. So being able to repurpose articles into something I talk out has been really useful. And I like alternating from time to time, a guest one week, a solo episode one week, and sometimes I will release two episodes in a week. It's been really helpful to me to not be married to a specific rhythm, even letting myself skip a week if I needed to, never forcing myself if my energy is not there. My energy is mostly there as a generator in human design, as long as I am lit up about something, it comes out. Another lesson, here's what I learned about myself as an interviewer and host. I've had a lot of compliments, and this is not to brag, of course. It's Leo season as I'm recording this, so why not talk about myself a little bit? Also, a Leo North Node. It's the season for that. I learned that a lot of people tell me I'm a great interviewer. They say that they felt natural and relaxed and they were able to open up and they didn't feel like they were recording a podcast episode at all. And to me, that is the biggest compliment because that is the format I wanted for the show. I wanted it to feel casual, natural, organic. You can always tell when someone is reading a script for a podcast, and that just gives me the ick. No, thank you. I want to have a conversation. I want you to feel like you are sitting at the cafe table with me and the guest. Maybe I've got a matcha latte, someone else has a black coffee, or maybe like a caramel something or other with some pistachio cold foam. I don't know. Something like that. That sounds really good. And you're sitting there with us. I want it to feel that comfortable. Next lesson, I discovered what really makes a good guest. The best guests, couple things. One, they are the ones who send me a pitch themselves. When podcast pitching services pitch a guest, there's a little bit of a disconnect. And sometimes the guest isn't quite ready. Their podcast pitcher, whatever you call these people, they're doing the legwork. Many of them are great and they're doing an excellent job. But I want to get to know the guest. And I find that the guest, when they do the pitching, actually is more genuine and we have a better conversation. If this is something that you do when you're trying to get on more podcasts, I would suggest having someone perhaps get a list of shows that you would like to be on. Perhaps they help you with a template for your pitch and then write your own pitch. And I would always suggest listening to a few episodes before you pitch the show. Sometimes they propose topics, and I'm like, you didn't listen to the show at all. And I can tell. The other thing that makes a good guest is those who are open to organic questions. On a couple of occasions, I had people say, can you send me the question list? I'm like, I don't have one. I tell them this. I might share, here's a few directions that we might go in and some general topics I like to discuss, but I am there leading the conversation. And I have been a guest on other podcasts where they have a list of questions to get through, and it feels so forced. And I can only imagine that to listen to it back feels forced too. It does not feel good. And I've been on those shows, and you can tell when the interviewer is like, okay, stop talking so I can get to my next question. And that's all they're trying to do. Like they are gripping so tight to their questions that they must get answered. No, that's not how I do things. If you can't show up and have a conversation naturally, then probably not the show for you. Most people, I think, are fine, just fine doing this. And I edit things. So if you ever say something that you wish you could take back, or you have to pause for 10 seconds, or UPS person comes to your door, your dog is barking, I'll edit that out. No big deal. Always. So there is that. Be a good guest, which is really not hard. Basically, just show up and be human. Really. And here's what surprised me about doing all this. I actually procrastinated for a long time on starting this podcast. Originally, it was called the Intuitive Writing Pod. Very original, I know. It matched my business name, the Intuitive Writing School. It aligned with my last book, Intuitive Writing, but it felt too big, too broad when I discovered that working with nature's rhythm, including a menstrual cycle for a woman, and seeing so many women burn out from writing because they were taking advice that was built for men or an overly masculine approach, like writing every day for 30 days to get your book done. Hand raised, I did that, and I burned out. It was not fun. And I didn't touch my book for 11 months. I've told that story a couple times. And I've heard from other people too. Same thing. Women are not meant to write like men. So I really wanted to interview women and hear the how behind the writing. And sometimes it surprises some of my guests too, because they never really thought about their process. Or they just want to share about, typically when they're on a podcast, like, here's about my book, I'm promoting my book, I'm promoting my services. No, I want to know how you write because I think it is so useful for listeners. And these questions surprise my guests where they're like, really? You want to know that? It's so boring. I'm like, no, like, yes, we really need to know this. A couple reasons. It gives them permission to try another way. It gives them inspiration to do something new. And it also shows them there is no wrong way to write a book. Everyone does it different. And everyone, even like authors who have written more than one book, they rarely write book two the same way they wrote book one. So I love sharing those examples. And the day to day, like you might think it's boring, but I really want to know how it happens behind the scenes. Those are the lessons. Here's what's next. Here's what I'm excited about these days. I'm not sure where the next 100 episodes are going, but I'm excited to keep bringing on great guests. Here's what's happening next. Inside the Intuitive Writing Studio, I am rolling out a brand new curriculum, which I'm really excited about. And over the past year or so, we've been flowing with the astrological seasons. And as you're listening to this, we just welcomed Virgo season, and we are kicking the series off with a workshop that's happening each month and is specifically going to take you through the arc of writing your book. So, if you have a book in you, you've started, or you've been waiting to start, Virgo season is the perfect time to do that. Virgo is all about daily habits and doing things well, routines, and there is no better time to get into a regular writing routine. And you also know when I say regular writing routine, that does not mean writing every day. Writing as much as you need to write. So we're kicking that off starting in September. And when you stick with us for a year and do the work, you'll have a book and a body of work. Because the creatives inside the studio are not just writing books, many of them are, they're also writing Substacks, they're writing business materials, newsletters, website copy, sales emails, all the things that an author entrepreneur needs to write. Now, even some who are not writing a book yet, they are working on a Substack or blog series that they are going to turn into a book. So we are sharing all of that month by month. So in addition to those workshops, you also get a daily writing prompt to keep you going, 2 minutes or less, as well as a monthly group coaching call, as well as the resources, guides, swipe files, inspiration, everything that's been created in there since I started the space in 2018. And this is the space that I started when I was not writing. I need the accountability, and I know that's why many members are still part of the studio today who have been there for 8 years. So I thank them for being a member. I'm excited to see you in there. The first session in the workshop series begins on September 8th. If you have questions before joining, get in touch. And lastly, I want to thank you for listening. I truly hope that what you've learned here on How Women Write has helped you write better, clearer, and even helped other areas of your life, because we are not just about the writing process, but living a great writing life. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you.